Hi, I'm Kim Tui Seelinger, and I direct the Sexual Violence Program here at the Human Rights Center. I've directed the program since we started in 2010, and I think because I am a lawyer by training and by practice, um, our research in the program has been really practice-oriented and is very applied. We focus on the two areas of sexual violence I care a lot about. One is sexual violence related to armed conflict, and the other is sexual violence that arises in the course of forced displacement. So we do a lot of research, and we do a lot of work shoulder to shoulder with police officers, nurses, doctors, lawyers, judges who are working on these cases in many different countries. And sometimes we have the opportunity and are invited to actually weigh in on war crimes cases that are happening at the local level, right there in national courts. It's not that common, but it's exciting that this is happening more and more. And I will never forget one time when we were asked to weigh in on the trial against the former president of Chad, Hissène Habré. He was being prosecuted in Senegal, which in and of itself is a very interesting story. But we were called in because in the course of testimony in that case, many witnesses and direct victims of sexual violence offered testimony about the different types of sexual crimes that had happened under his regime. And there was some need to clarify how to charge those events, how to charge those crimes. So we submitted an amicus curiae brief, which we understand was helpful to those working on the case. And I will never forget when we were able to actually fly to that courtroom in Dakar for the trial verdict when it was delivered in May of 2016. I flew there with my former student who had helped me on the brief and one of our researchers here. And we sat in that courtroom listening to Judge Kam read the decision. And we were sitting behind a row of women who had come in from Chad. And I will never forget when Judge Kam reached the end of the verdict and he said the word guilty. There was a hush in the room, and right after this moment of shock and silence, the women in front of us stood up, all of them stood up. And they started cheering and raising their arms, and then they started singing. They were singing about victory. And I will never forget it, because it struck me between the eyes to think about how brave they had to be to come to a different country, to stand and testify face to face against their former president, and how this must have felt for them, and how long they had held on to that song, 30 years. So I was moved by that, and I want to make sure that we in the program do everything we can to research and help document and help improve protection systems for survivors of conflict-related sexual violence, refugees who are suffering sexual violence as they flee their countries. We can do a lot now to make sure that people get the services they need in the near term and hopefully justice in the long term.